Marcus had long forgotten what it felt like to sit across from someone at a dinner table. 3 years had passed since the accident that took his wife, Diana, and in those 3 years, Saturday afternoons had become his quietest, loneliest hours. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of small moments to change lives, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness True Stories. Also, tell us in the comments where in the world are you watching from. He would brew a pot of chamomile tea, set out 1 cup, always 1 cup, and sit by the window of the small cafe near Maplewood Park, watching the world move in pairs and families while he remained perfectly, painfully still. The cafe was called Rosie's, and the woman who ran it had kind eyes and never asked him why he always sat alone. He appreciated that more than she would ever know. That particular Saturday in October, the air outside carried the first real chill of autumn, and golden leaves pressed themselves against the glass like tiny hands waving. Marcus wrapped both palms around his teacup and exhaled slowly, trying to make peace with the silence the way he did every week. He had just closed his eyes when he heard it, a small sound, urgent and conspiratorial, coming from somewhere near his left knee. He opened his eyes and looked down. 3 identical little girls, no older than 6, stood in a perfect row beside his table. They had dark curly hair, matching yellow dresses with white collars, and 3 pairs of the most serious brown eyes he had ever seen on human beings that small. The one in the middle leaned forward and whispered, barely loud enough for him to hear, "Pretend you're our father." Marcus blinked. He looked around the cafe instinctively, searching for a panicked parent rushing toward them. But the cafe was calm. Soft music, the clink of spoons, ordinary Saturday afternoon sounds. He looked back at the 3 girls, who were still watching him with extraordinary focus and patience. "I beg your pardon?" he whispered back, matching their conspiratorial tone without even thinking about it. The girl on the left, slightly bolder than her sisters, pointed toward a table near the counter where a woman sat hunched over a laptop, glasses slipping down her nose, clearly drowning in whatever was on her screen. "That's our mum," the girl whispered. "She works too much. We want her to look up." "Strangers make her look up?" The girl in the middle nodded gravely, as if confirming a military strategy. "If you are our father, she will look up and stop working, and then we can have cake." The 3rd girl, the quietest one, held up 3 fingers very seriously. Marcus felt something move inside his chest, something that had been very still for a very long time. He pressed his lips together to hide the smile fighting its way onto his face. He leaned down slightly, matching their seriousness. "Right," he whispered. "What are your names?" "I'm Lily," said the bold one on the left. "I'm Rose," said the one in the middle. "And I'm Violet," breathed the quiet one. "We're flower sisters," Rose explained, with the authority of someone stating an established fact. Marcus nodded slowly. "And what is your mother's name?" "Eleanor," said Lily. "But she likes Ellie," said Violet softly, speaking at last. Marcus straightened in his chair, smoothed down the front of his jacket, and then called out, with perfect calm, "Ellie, the girls found me." The cafe went quiet for just a second. Eleanor looked up from her laptop so fast her glasses nearly flew off her face. She stared at Marcus, then at her daughters standing beside the very kind-faced stranger at the window table, and a series of emotions crossed her face in rapid succession: confusion, then mortification, then a helpless and completely unguarded burst of laughter that she tried unsuccessfully to smother with her hand. She crossed the cafe in 4 quick strides, her cheeks flushed pink. "I am so sorry," she said, looking at Marcus with wide, embarrassed eyes. "They do things like this. I cannot explain them. I have tried." "They explained themselves very clearly." "Actually," Marcus said, and he was smiling now, a real smile, the kind that reached his eyes and surprised him with how natural it felt. "They wanted cake." Eleanor looked down at her daughters, who stood in their row wearing identical expressions of complete innocence. "Mummy," said Rose, "you were working again." Eleanor opened her mouth, closed it, and then sat down heavily in the chair across from Marcus, as if her legs had simply decided the argument for her. He ordered tea for her without quite meaning to. He simply raised his hand and asked Rosie for another cup. and it felt like the most natural gesture in the world. The girls arranged themselves around the table, commandeering chairs with the efficiency of a small, well-organized army. Violet climbed into the seat beside Marcus and wordlessly placed her small hand over his on the table, the way children sometimes do when they feel at home somewhere. He looked down at that tiny hand resting on his and felt the silence. Inside him shift, not disappear, but make room for something new. Eleanor watched her youngest daughter take the stranger's hand and, instead of intervening, simply looked at Marcus with soft, wondering eyes. "I'm Eleanor," she said quietly. "I know," he said. "I'm Marcus." They talked for 2 hours. The girls had their cake. The autumn light turned orange and low against the window, and Marcus, who had set out 1 cup, went home with the memory of 4. If this story warmed your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel Kindness True Stories, where every story reminds you that love has a way of finding you, even in your quietest moments.